contact going forward as the relationship manager in your company, you get access to 78 seasoned Rolodexes.
Yeah.
People have had CMO jobs at large CPG companies, angel investors, ex-hedge fund guys, ex-private equity guys, ex-venture people, individual angel investors in the cannabis industry. So a great collection of people that bring not only their capital through the fund, but their guidance and their Rolodexes externally and individually.
From the PodConx studios, high in the Rockies at the beautiful Beaver Creek Resort, it's the Raising Cannabis Capital Show.
Today at MJ Bulls, we are joined by Jeffrey Finkle, the CEO of the the-arcview Group. Jeffrey, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm really happy that we were able to make it work today. For our listeners who aren't aware, the the-arcview Group really blazed the trail for cannabis investments. Long before cannabis was cool, they provided a platform for investors to meet and invest in cannabis companies. In fact, many people believe that those early investments really sparked the growth of our industry. And over the years, the the-arcview Group has evolved into an expansive ecosystem that delivers a broad spectrum of programs and services to the industry. And I hope to touch on just about everything if I can. But before we do, Jeffrey, I thought I'd turn the tables on you a little bit today. And can you give us the the-arcview Group's elevator pitch?
Wow, elevator. It's so much history. It's a little hard to condense it. I would say that the the-arcview Group is a collection of integrated financial services and event production companies that all benefit each other through their sort of connection to the the-arcview ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. So it's a really symbiotic arrangement that you have in the company. And I know, like I said, we're going to touch on a lot of the services that you provide, but everything seems to work together, which is really interesting as you dig deeper and deeper into the the-arcview Group. I thought maybe we'd start off today and look at it from an investor perspective. Maybe that's where we get it kicked off. And if I was an investor that was thinking about making some cannabis investments, just give us an overview and some of the services that you would provide to an investor.
An investor can connect with us a number of ways, right? First, I would say our broker-dealer, our FINRA registered broker-dealer, the-arcview Capital. If you want to place dollars in the cannabis industry, you could look at what they're banking through a mandate. They do Reg D offerings, right? So traditional capital raises. They do Reg A offerings, and they recently have launched a crowdfunding site for cannabis companies such that investors that want to bet a smaller amount of money can look at what's on the crowdfunding site and make smaller commitments. So that's the first area where investors can connect with us. Secondly, our venture fund, we have actually two pockets of money that we invest out of. The the-arcview Collective Fund, which is a member-managed venture fund, and the the-arcview Entourage Seed Fund, which is our seed and early growth effort that we do in partnership with Entourage Effect Capital. Those two vehicles, when they fund companies, often aggregate special purpose vehicles, SPVs, for investors to come alongside in those investments with us. So those are two obvious ways that investors can interact with us. The third way that they can interact with us is to attend our events. So we produce 2 to 3 thought leadership webinars a month. And Dan, early on, we were very prolific in-person event conference producers. Of course, since COVID, we haven't done one. We are back in that business. We're doing our first large event in New York in October. We're doing a smaller event for our Women's Inclusion Network in LA in January. But investors that want to get a sense for the industry, see compelling companies, learn about the industry and network should come to those events. They're terrific. They're educational, and they're just great for networking.
And it's really great for companies when the companies get an opportunity to get in front of a lot of people. And I've been to a few of those events, and you're right, it's a really good opportunity. Before I jump off this topic, though, talk to me a little bit about the the-arcview market research pillar or arm of your organization.
So our marketing research lives in our consulting company. And we used to be a fairly prolific producer of marketing research to sort of do market forecasts. We're doing less of that today, but we do collaborate on a research piece around the vape industry, and we're producing fairly regular reports on that. We're about to do a few more things in research that I'm not really ready to talk about, but we're going to play, again, I think a more substantial role in that in the near future.
Well, and you have so much data. I think I read over 300 investments or maybe more through the the-arcview group that I'm sure you have so much data available to investors you take for granted, but an investor that doesn't have that much experience, this stuff is so valuable. Before I forget this, you said something about women investors. Is that a separate arm or was that within the group?
So it's funny. It used to be called the Women's Investor Network. We changed it to be called the Women's Inclusion Network because what we realized is that women in the industry needed a safe place in which that they could collaborate with one another and learn, whether the purpose was to invest or to start a company or to get a job in the industry.
Yeah.
So the Women's Inclusion Network, I think we're close to 300 strong. It's a membership organization where we host mentorship events, educational events, and we're doing our first large in-person event, as I said, in LA in June. But that actually lives in our the-arcview Events and Experiences joint venture that we have with the McVeigh Group, which is a private equity funded event production company that we're doing all our events with, but the WIN program is underneath that JV.
Okay. I'm glad you clarified that for us. Let's switch gears. Let's talk about companies that are interested in raising money. You briefly touched on it. I think there were two distinct vehicles that you use to invest in companies. There may be more. Maybe explain if I were a company that was intended to raise capital, what opportunities are there for me within the the-arcview group?
Yeah. So in our ventures group, the-arcview Ventures, we have the the-arcview Collective Fund. And the the-arcview Collective Fund is a member-managed venture fund. So I don't want to get all wonky on structure, but investors in venture funds are usually silent. They're called limited partners. And they just kind of sit there, give a check, and read a report at the end of the year. In the collective fund, they're substantially more active. And so we have 78 investors in that pocket that all lend their Rolodex, their experience, and their guidance to the portfolio companies. And they're part of the decision-making process to decide how the fund is run and in which companies the fund invests. So it's a true collective. It's kind of a unique model. It's not an individual network where it's a pass the hat. Hey, Dan, are you in? Well, no, I've decided I'm out. Everybody votes, but they vote on behalf of the treasury of the fund. And when the vote is affirmed, the treasury funds the company.
Oh, okay.
So that's one place. And the benefit of pitching to the collective fund is, again, for one point of contact going forward as the relationship manager in your company, you get access to 78 seasoned Rolodexes.
Yeah.
People have had CMO jobs at large CPG companies, angel investors, ex-hedge fund guys, ex-private equity guys, ex-venture people, individual angel investors in the cannabis industry. So a great collection of people that bring not only their capital through the fund, but their guidance and their Rolodexes externally and individually. So that's the best place. Then alongside of that the-arcview Entourage Seed, that fund is writing slightly larger checks. It's a fund that I run with Gene Sullivan in partnership with Entourage Effect Capital. And that's an opportunity too. The way to learn about that is get a hold of Gene or I, and we can see if your opportunity qualifies. And then again, investors should just come to our conferences. Come to our conferences, meet investors, meet other companies, see how they pitch, and become better at what you do. Yeah,
I think sometimes you get the best education from watching other people's pitches. At an event like your events, there's enough of them that you can see a lot of different styles and find something that really works well for you. Now, between those two funds, is one more designed, like you mentioned, the early stage or seed stage fund? Are they separated by when or what stage the company is in? Is that how you determine which place to best fit somebody?
Yeah, both of those funds have a seed and early growth stage thesis. Okay. The collective fund is a smaller check writer. It's writing about 150K checks in deals. And quite frankly, that pocket can even invest in a growth capital deal if it just loves the team and there's 150K of room in the deal. It has a more eclectic stage thesis, but primarily we look for seed and early growth. The ArcView Entourage Seed Fund, that is much more sort of religious to seed and early growth. That's not going to do anything participatory in a growth stage deal. That's the job of Entourage Effect Capital, our partner. They have a growth capital fund. We serve sort of as the little brother or the search fund for that larger effort.
Yeah, almost like your minor league feeder program.
We're a feeder fund. We're a feeder fund. We're a search fund, and they get visibility into how the management teams work and how these companies progress to decide if it makes sense for them to invest a year and a half, 2 years down the road when they're raising their growth capital round.
That's great. Well, we're going to have links to the ArcView Group in the show notes. So whether you're a company considering raising capital or you're an investor that wants to learn more about investing in the cannabis industry, or you want to attend one of the events, just click the links to get started. Jeffrey, it's always great to catch up. I really appreciate you being on the show today.
Thanks, Dan. It was fun.
I'm Joy Beckerman, and I'd like to invite you to join me with my hemp industry leading guests on Hemp Baron. During my over a quarter century at the forefront of the hemp movement and emerging hemp economy, I've had the privilege of working with many of the world's most dynamic, innovative, trailblazing hemp pioneers. And now, every week, I have the honor of speaking with them and sharing their stories with you on Hemp Baron. You can download the latest episode every Wednesday at mjbulls.com or from wherever you listen to podcasts.